And I also believe that all kids, even the 3-4-year-olds, we can start framing that discussion in a very positive way. My favorite way is like taking on the detective role. So like looking for clues. How are our brains working? What do we need to still do, right? And just be inquisitive about it. Like if you come up against a speed bump, like, oh, what happened there? What do you think we could have done better? We've got to kind of figure this out. I know we can figure out a different way to do it, right? So again, just thinking about that, reframing it, but, come together, having those conversations as a family, working with your team.
I think one of the most areas in which children with ADHD face is being understood, really being understood in terms of what they need to be able to reach their potential. I think it's very common for people to say, oh, I think I have a little ADHD today, or oh, I'm distracted. Mm-hmm. And so because it's become so mainstream, we really, generally speaking, haven't really dived into what it is, how it affects children, and sincerely what they need to be able to succeed in school, and then how can we support that process at home. So I think that's a very big missing piece. How do we teach toward their executive functioning skills so they can self-regulate? I think that's a big part because of that misunderstanding.
Wide spectrum, right? So we have our rejection sensitivity dysphoria, which impacts just like every way that you perceive things and the way that you interact with others and the level of emotion behind what it is they're saying and how you're taking it and all of that. And then also, to even talk about the sensitivities, the sensory issues that people often miss for those who, those with ADHD. They'll go unacknowledged. So, the kid or even the parent may be bothered by certain things, going on around them. And nobody is really identifying that sensory issues can be a part of the problem. So it may cause an emotional dysregulation in you to really be, to be hit with something that really bothers you, from that perspective. Mm-hmm. And then Dr. Nerissa, my emotion soaking piece, that's my big time piece, that, unintentional sponging of the feeling energies of others. Those with ADHD tend to be very, what people call intuitive or very in tune. And so oftentimes you'll meet those who don't feel to you to be an empath because they do not want to fix anyone's issues, but they are strongly drawing from the emotional, reaction, the internal reactions of others, but nobody can put a name to it, right?
Children with ADHD and adults with ADHD also have very common co-occurring sleep disorders. Some of the common ones are what we call as periodic limb movement disorder, where they're moving a lot in their sleep. And imagine that. When we sleep, your brain is going through a reboot. It shuts down and then wakes up. If you're moving all the time, it's only going to the screensaver mode and never shutting off. So there's no reboot. So all the benefits of reboots are not there. And the ADHD appears to be worse the next day. And the medications don't work. They're more sensitive and sensory reactive. They're more hyperactive. There's focus and concentration issues. And eventually it leads to crashing and irritability. When those kind of things happen, we want to probably take a step back and say, sure, they're sleeping through the night and they're not bothering anybody, but when they wake up, are they nicely tucked in? Is their bed looking okay? Or does it feel like they were just dancing in their bed all night long and are all the sheets all over the place? If that's the case, get them checked out because they might be struggling with some low iron, a specific type of iron called ferritin, which could easily be replenished by doing a little bit of dietary change or maybe taking a little bit of over-the-counter iron supplement for
ADHD explains why you're not able to do this and why you're not able to do that. And it gives you the ability to think, how can I do it better? Because I find that sometimes, not everybody, sometimes there are people who do use their ADHD as a crutch. We don't like to talk about this, but it is true. And kids are going to be kids. As a pediatrician, we know it. They're going to try us. Either they have ADHD or they don't have ADHD. They're going to try us. So it's important to also set that limit because, like, she tried it on me the other day. She was like, "Yeah, it was because of my ADHD." I'm like, "No, babes, it wasn't." you know. But at the same time, it's okay to acknowledge, why do you think it was because of your ADHD? Let's have this conversation, right? And then explain to them, actually, this is not because of your ADHD, but what strategies do you want to put in place? Again, giving them the ability to come up with their own management of it.
And so it's really about creating a system and environment within families, but also not families, just school as well, that can at least account for ADHD. You know, I get so many parents in here that once I give them information, then they're criticizing themselves. They're beating themselves up over it. And, you know, they themselves very likely, like we just said, may have ADHD or at least some behavioral aspects similar to that. And so, it's really about critiquing themselves and not criticizing themselves and trying to work on, minimizing certain behaviors so that they can hopefully instill, certain thoughts and values in the child that, can support them and not lead into some of these really negative thought patterns that we see.
One of the challenges I hear a lot about is just identification of ADHD, especially in girls. Oftentimes, girls with ADHD are just harder to identify. And this is for a variety of reasons. One is this pervasive misunderstanding that girls cannot have ADHD. It's just a boy condition. And we know that really is not true. Girls also tend to have more of the inattentive presentation. And so that just makes it harder to identify. And we know that the girls often go misdiagnosed and mislabeled for many years before their proper diagnosis is given. And so I think just that is really hard for girls and their families. And we certainly want to make sure that we get the message out that girls can have ADHD, just can look different than boys.
I think that one of the reasons why females don't get diagnosed earlier per se, yes, the inattentive type, so you're not really causing a ruckus, you're in the back of the room daydreaming and you're not causing a ruckus, right? But if you are lucky enough to be aligned in something that you enjoy doing, you're going to outwork whoever is around you because you think that this is the price that you're going to quote unquote pay, or this is worth it, or this is just what it means for me to be able to do X, Y, and Z. And so I think those are contributing factors. And then, of course, if you look around and all your family's acting like you don't think that this is abnormal, right? Because not that I'm saying that ADHD is abnormal, but you know what I mean? Like everybody is doing what you're doing. So this is just the way my family is. And you don't realize that, oh, maybe my whole family has ADHD, right?